I'll get started, folks. Welcome to our live stream on our skin sites on virgin coconut oil as an antiviral and an antimicrobial specifically. And basically, we're doing a part two of this because a lot has been happening. That's one. A lot of new studies, etc. But also, you guys basically bumped the replay of the first live stream that we did about this to the third most watched video on our YouTube channel. So we figured it was a good time to revisit it. Please don't forget to ask questions. Today, if I'm not mistaken, we'll be choosing 5 winners from people who are SVP and people who comment and ask questions. Hi, Faye. Um, and we'll be giving away free shipping coupons, which is pretty awesome. And sort of as a brief overview, for those who don't know, our journey into VCO, into virgin coconut oil at VMV, began, I want to say, in the 90s. And it was because my mom all of a sudden got really interested in studying virgin coconut oil. And at the time, I kept dismissing it. I was like, why on earth would you be interested in studying VCO? Because everything I'd heard ignorantly up until that point with regards to natural remedies wasn't well studied. There wasn't evidence based studies that I knew of. Of course, now I know there's so much already on VCO. But in the 90s, a lot of dermatology was abuzz with natural stuff, botanicals and whatnot. So my mom got into them. So many of them are allergens, but she was really kind of curious. She grew up in Bogo, Cebu, and VCO there, or coconut oil there, is sort of a staple, as it is for many, many parts of the world, as an ancient remedy for so many things, right? So she got into it, published studies on it. So if you look at currently at the more recent studies on virgin coconut oil and monolaurin with evidence-based randomized double-blind clinical trials for the skin in particular, arguably a good majority are hers, right? Some of the most cited ones are hers. And she considers herself spinning off of the important work that Jan Cabara did on monolaurin back in the 70s. So yeah, she got into it a lot. She then, she has a small farm in the island of Leyte that was her father's, and got it certified organic because she wanted to be able to control very, very specifically how the oil was being grown, harvested, pressed. She really wanted no heat. She didn't want to lose any of the phytochemicals, no centrifuge, no allergens added or in the same vats that are, it's stored in, no added chemicals, because to extract coconut oil cheaply, you do need to add stuff to, to extract more of it faster or to subject it to heat, for example. And she didn't want any of that because she wanted to use them in clinical trials on her patients, in actual clinical trials with more patients, with more clinical subjects and stuff. So when she decided, look, the proof is there, it's really fantastic. I'd like for you to, let's make a VMV, let's do this under VMV. I remember it was a bit of a fight. I was like, we're not gonna make coconut oil. What the hell, right? It's a freaking food. And for those of you who've been watching us for a while now, I hope you know I've learned my lesson and I basically don't argue anymore. If she wants to do it, we do it. So you can find, for example, our organic virgin coconut oil. This is pretty cool. This is Know It Oil. That is the organic certified. Here's the certified thingy up here on the other side. But this thing, what you see here on the label, is an excerpt of one of the clinical studies that is published in a peer-reviewed journal. So, yeah, I think we can claim rather safely that this is the only oil, or the virgin coconut oil we use in our products is the only one that actually has clinical studies published on it in particular, right, in peer-reviewed journals. It also comes in this cool size, which I love because it's handy and you can reapply it during the day. And oils well. This is a pretty cool. I think this is sort of an unsung hero at VMV because it is Know It Oil, the exact same organic virgin coconut oil, but with monolaurin in it. And in case you didn't know, 2 of the 3 ingredients in our Boo Boo Balm are this virgin coconut oil and monolaurin, which is why it's so great at healing, right? Broad spectrum antimicrobial. if you are in the United States or other countries, you can shop those products, and almost everything we make has that virgin coconut oil in it and monolaurin. You can shop us at vmvhypoallergenics.com, and in the Philippines at vmvhypoallergenics.ph, and also on Viber. In the USA, we offer Afterpay, where you can purchase now, pay later, and route to protect your shipping packages. For everybody, if you would like a teleconsultation with my mother or any other doctor we work with, or if you would like us to customize recommendations for you based on your patch test results, definitely drop us a DM. My mom was just interviewed on CNN Philippines, and another news network that is still going to broadcast the episode precisely on VCO, virgin coconut oil, and COVID and all the studies that are happening. So, on that note, I will be calling in my mom, our founding dermatopathologist. Welcome, Veralio Rowell.
Hello.
Mwah. Mwah. We're loud kissers, apparently. Here, let me make sure there's enough of you in there.
Double kiss.
There. You're well lit? Yes. Okay.
How do you do, World?
Hi, everybody. So, okay. Crucially for our live stream today is the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, if you do a search for randomized, double-blind, evidence-based clinical studies, good Lord, I can't speak today. Evidence-based clinical studies on VCO and monolaurin for the skin, that's the name that's going to pop up. And basically, my husband and I were laughing last night because we were talking about this live stream, and I was saying, I need to make sure, I get these questions in. And he was like, yeah, because otherwise, this is the live stream. So, Mom, VCO. And I could just go away and grab a bite, right? So, say hello to everyone, Mom.
Hello, everybody. Hello, world.
Hi. Okay, so hi, Tammy from Maryland.
Tammy, yes.
Yep, who's fully vaccinated. I love it. I hope everyone else is getting vaccinated too. So, let's get started.
Okay.
Mom, before getting into what's new, because there's so much that's new, and that's really why we're here, but let's give the viewers an introduction again to VCO and monolaurin as antivirals, antimicrobials, and why they're so interesting for COVID.
Okay. What's actually very interesting about antimicrobials, I actually gave a lecture a couple of years ago in Thailand, which I called Antimicrobials of Lipids Revisited. Because back in 1918, in the 1980s, 1980s? No, 1800s.
In the 1800s.
As far back as the 1800s, lipids were already considered antimicrobials. They were the ones that were used by the old gentlemen who were looking for something to kill microbes using lipids,
That's right.
oils, botanicals, whatever. But then, when did Fleming discovered penicillin early in the 1900s, and with that, it's so much easier to synthesize or to extract an antibiotic like penicillin.
That's right, because it's in a Petri dish.
Yes. So there, once that Petri dish thing was found and all, it became penicillin, and there followed all of these other antibiotics that you're familiar with that we're using nowadays to kill bacteria and fungi and whatever.
I forgot it was the 1800s.
But
It
in the
goes back far
1800s, the
more,
lipids
yeah.
were already there. I actually have a beautiful
Interesting.
presentation on this, going back historically to those times. And so I said, and so therefore, if you now go, what's happening, however, to these antibiotics is that because they are enzymatic, their action is with the use of an enzyme, in order to attack the microbes. So another chemical is used by the antibiotics to kill the microbe. What happens, however, with these lipids is their action is totally different. And in particular, the beauty about coconut oil is that it's in the way it is. It is itself.
She's a fan.
So what oils are made of is called triglycerides, and what that means is that there's a glycerin molecule which has 3 carbons, and the 3 carbons to each one is attached a fatty acid, and so therefore that's why it's called a fatty acid glyceride, triglycerides. That's all that oils contain, these botanical oils. So when you either apply it on your skin or you take it internally, we have normal microbes on our surface skin, and we have the gut microbiota as well. those microbes, gut or skin surface, will break down almost immediately the coconut oil into its individual fatty acids and monoglycerides. And it is these fatty acids and monoglycerides from the coconut oil that have the antimicrobial
Okay.
activities, because
Yeah.
what they do in coconut oil is, because they're 92% saturated and medium chain only, they're like, I always say, they're like me. I'm tiny, I'm cute, and I'm short. So we can lie down like logs, and we can, when we see an organism with a membrane that is alien to the body, not like the other fatty acids that are roaming around to repair our cells. This is alien, so we attack it physically, not enzymatically like antibiotics do. And
Okay,
by
so
physical breakdown of the lipid membrane, the
yes.
microbes are killed.
Let me get into that again. We tackled that before, but it's a little hard sometimes when people hear it for the first time. So all cells, including the microbes, right?
Yes.
The cell wall is lipid,
Yes.
right? So other antibiotics work more chemically because they have to destroy the enzyme. Is that
Right.
correct? Okay. Whereas for something like virgin coconut oil, actually it's also how alcohol works, right? It's a physical destruction of the lipid layer, no?
Yes.
Yeah. So imagine, if you will, uh, here's a microbe, here's an antibiotic. The antibiotic has to get in and sort of finagle with the internal workings,
In the cell itself,
right,
into the
to
cell.
kill it.
It's more difficult.
Whereas something like virgin coconut oil or alcohol basically comes up to the microbe
Um,
and tears apart the lipid layer,
Right.
right? It just physically tears it apart so that all the stuff inside it can't survive, right?
As early as the 1980s, folks, the electron microscopic video already of this kind of physical action by
Mm.
the fatty acids of coconut oil was already demonstrated by researchers in Sweden.
Yeah. There you go.
So this is not new.
Right.
But like I said, it was put aside because the antibiotics are more fun to deal with and faster
And
cleaner
cheaper at the end of the day because
Yeah.
it's a petri dish, right?
Right.
As opposed to having to extract the oil, make sure it's pure, I imagine, etc. Right? Okay, so that's kind of the overview of the history
Right.
of VCO. Monolaurin, you keep saying VCO's fatty acids are native to skin. Because one of the concerns, or one of the interesting questions I keep getting is, if you use VCO and monolaurin,
How about our normal cells?
right, doesn't that also destroy our normal cells, lipid membranes, and doesn't it also offset the balance of our microbiota?
Well, you can say the same thing of our microbiota. Those are organisms in our body, in our gut, and on our skin. Why don't they also kill us, the rest of the cells? Simply because those cells are native to the body. They are, familiar to these microbes, and so therefore,
And our body sees
yeah,
VCO
right.
as
But you
native
put
to
in
the
a
body.
Staphylococcus aureus, or you put in an Escherichia coli, or you put in any
I'm sorry.
Trying to show
what
off.
now? Escherichia coli.
or
Okay.
whatever organisms are alien to the body, then the microbes will.
But our bodies
attack it.
don't see VCO as alien.
No.
Interesting,
because
right?
the fatty acids that come from it, when it's broken down, are really native to the body. It's
There you
used
go.
by the body. It's about 18%. One of the chemicals that break off when the VCO is broken down is monolaurin, and that's about 17 to 18% in mother's milk.
Exactly.
So it's
So our bodies don't see it as
No.
foreign,
Mhm.
and it doesn't attack healthy cells and
Yes.
healthy microbes in our
Correct.
bodies. Okay,
Right.
so that's sort of the general gist of it, right? The history of it.
So can I go to the exciting things that are happening now?
Basically, I'll see you guys later. I'll go have a coffee.
So, I just came from a meeting at QMMC, Carino Memorial Medical Center. I've always been with government hospitals to be able to help other people who are the urban poor, in particular in Manila. And so I'm a member of the faculty of QMMC. And last year, I had a study. I really believe coconut oil would kill these viruses in the skin, but I wanted it first on mild to moderate COVID. And I didn't have any sponsor. Nobody would sponsor this study. So I went to QMMC and said, will you not charge me, please, for the IRB? That's
This
about
is a government hospital.
about
she's talking about.
60,000 pesos. I said, I don't have the money because I'm the only sponsor for this, and I'm just giving you all of the coconut oil that will be needed for the study. They were so nice. They accepted, no charges, everything. They reviewed it thoroughly. Anyway, we're about to finish this mild to moderate COVID and using coconut oil as a disinfectant on the noses, throat, skin. Lo and behold, we are now halfway through. We're almost getting to the number that we want to have included in this study, and already we're seeing amazing results in the way those who are using COVID and versus those who are just using vitamin C and zinc, which is the usual thing they give for mild to moderate here in the country. So somehow the government heard about this. There's a big think tank, research institution of the government in this country called the Department of Science and Trade, the Philippine Health Center Research and Development or something like that. They came to me and said, would you please develop a study, not for mild to moderate, but for severe? I said, oh, okay. So I started to look at the most recent literature again. And when I saw the recent literature, it boggled the mind because I realized that there are receptors in the gland cells of the mucosa of the nose, in the gland cells of the mucosa of the mouth, and on the sweat gland cells. There are two in particular, what we call receptors and co-receptors. I won't bother to give you the name. But those two are present in the glands. Okay, it's called the ACE2 receptor, and the other one is the TMPRSS2 co-receptor.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to write that down later. Okay.
So those two are present in the gland cells
of the sweat.
Mucus, skin.
Those two cells are present in the sweat glands of the skin, in the glands of the mucosa of the nose, in the glands of the mucosa of the mouth.
That's right.
Okay.
So the biggest, about 85% of COVID gets to us through our skin and through inhaling and like that. That's how they get in. But they're not yet ready to, to do their dirty tricks. They still have to multiply in our cells. And the receptor cells in our body are the skin. 85% is skin and this. But where they replicate most is really in the glandular part of the. So, in the severe cases of COVID that we're going to be treating in 3 centers in the Philippines, 2 private, one private, one government, another private, but in a province, so far away from Manila, so we can do a multi-center study. We will be actually involving the nurses and teaching them to use the coconut oil to wipe the mouth because it becomes very dry from this glandular effect of the COVID. They become very, very dry. They develop ulcers. And they have gadgets put in for the oxygen and clean their
if you've ever heard anyone come off of a ventilator,
terrible.
The voice is just destroyed.
So that therefore, what's making COVID a very serious illness now when they get into the hospital because they're severe is not really the bug anymore, not longer the COVID itself.
Or not just.
Good word. Not just the COVID itself, but also the what we call co-infection and super infection with super bugs that are present because of all of these things that are happening. So coconut oil comes and we're going to be using it for cleaning and wiping and whatever the mucosa, not just the skin and the sweat, but also the mucosa of the nose and the throat, and wiping it there. And those tubes that go in, they will clean it and then they will wipe it first with a film of coconut oil before they insert it.
Fantastic.
And we expect great things, so that we're expecting that the usual COVID severe will stay in a hospital for 2 weeks at least, 3 or 4 weeks, and the really serious cases will last longer. But the average is 2 to 4 weeks stay for severe cases. We anticipate that not only will they stay shorter period, but they will also come out of it with no anosmia, no more, they can taste, they can smell, they're feeling so much better because of the effect of the oil on this.
Okay, folks, so there are 3 ongoing studies, right?
The other one is community-based. We're getting
for prevention.
Yes, for prevention.
Yeah. So, just to slow things down.
Okay.
There are 3 ongoing studies. It's a multi-center study for severe COVID patients, right? Using coconut oil in the mucosa of the nose and the mouth, but also using it to help in terms of the invasive procedures,
Mhm.
correct? So the tubes that have to go in, the ventilation, the all of that. And then there's also still the ongoing mild to moderate COVID case studies. Then she's going to be working on another study for prevention, that's going to be coming. So basically, it's like four studies that are happening. And yeah, Tammy, you're right. It's
Communities,
amazing, and
urban poor communities.
the study isn't finished yet. But what was interesting is that, you know, at the as she was mentioning, the ramp up to the study was a little really, and then, you know, and she would donate because individual doctors and nurses would be contacting and saying, my hands are shut because of all the alcohol and all of whatever. Is there any way we can get the VCO? And so we actually did a bit of a campaign and donated a lot of VCO, and she still does it. That led to this study. And again, even though people were looking for it, there was a bit of a, and then, but once it started going and people started seeing the results, and then people started reading the studies more, then it was like, wait, just a moment.
She may have something there.
Maybe we should do some more, right? So it's really interesting where it's going. Um, there was a
If there are
question.
any dermatologists listening, or you can tell your dermatologist friends, I've actually been invited to give this 20-minute lecture, which is a big thing, in our International Congress of Dermatology. That's the annual one. And this year it's going to be hosted by Australia, virtual, of course. And what they asked me to give a talk in is how to study natural products.
There you go.
So I said, oh, okay, I think I know a thing or two about that, especially now. The latest one would be on the COVID. Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of where we are about all of this. Maybe we can share how to do it. Like if any viewer here is watching and wants to try it, because we've been using VCO
Yeah.
preventively. It's part of our disinfection and prevention, our safety protocols in her clinic. And remember, she sees immunocompromised patients
Mhm.
who say have psoriasis, who are on biologicals, etc. In the manufacturing plant, laboratory, all of this. That's what we've been using for over a year. Okay, so maybe walk us through. I can explain the protocol later, but what are the key ways to use VCO? Well, in the study that you're doing with Quirino,
Yeah.
how is it applied?
First, I'll tell you how we do it in Carino. Remember, these are RT-PCR positive COVID cases that are mild to moderate.
Mhm.
Okay, so therefore the dosage is bigger than the amount I will recommend to you to use on a daily basis, just twice a day, and that will take care of your disinfection needs. So in Quirino and QMMC, what we're doing is we have them get about half a teaspoon of the coconut oil, put it in a little cup that we give them, and then they put the coconut oil there. We give them big bottles of the VCO. Then they put some, get about half a teaspoon, and then they put it in their hands, nails, just like you would the
A hand
antiseptic,
sanitizer.
like a hand
Same
sanitizer.
thing.
Exactly
Under
the
your
same.
nails, in between the webbing, on the
Right.
top, the whole
Right.
thing. We
And
actually say
then-
until the elbows.
And then put it also on the neck, into the face, and into the ears. Okay, these are all the areas of the skin that are exposed to the atmosphere. Okay. Then you get a little pledget and put it into that coconut
That would be a
oil.
cotton swab for the
Ca-
rest of us.
Cotton swab. You put it in the oil and then, don't let it drip. And then put it into the nose, swab it around as far as you can manage, and then breathe.
Inhale it.
And you do the same thing on the other side. And you do that 3 times. That will take care now. You remember the nose is a
Yeah.
big entryway, and when you start multiplying those COVID organisms in your nose, this is the one that you're also going to give to the world. So it's back and forth. So that's why you have to do it 3 times. Then you get, for treatment, I tell them to get a tablespoon of coconut oil that is then placed into the mouth about 10 seconds or so, and then let it flow down into the throat, gargle, and then whatever is left, you swallow it. Some people get a little bit of rumbly stomach, or will have a little bit of softening of the stools, which is for most people okay. But if you have a little bit of those, or and you don't like it, what you can do is start with smaller amounts,
And work
like
up.
1 teaspoon and work it up. That's 3 times a day. Remember, this is for proven RT-PCR positive COVID. For a daily regimen, what I recommend and what I
For
do
like
regularly,
prevention, yeah.
yeah, for prevention, is just twice a day. People ask, but it's washed off. I said, no, no. The difference between alcohol and the other disinfectants you're using is that they stay there, but they evaporate. They go away, right? But the oil is an organic oil. It has those fatty acids that your skin loves.
Yeah.
So it breaks down
It
into
doesn't
the fatty
feel
acids.
greasy,
Right,
but it stays on.
right.
It doesn't evaporate like alcohol.
So
'Cause
it
it's a
stays
lipid.
there. There's actually a study that I quote also in my paper about the fact that when they apply the oil, they can actually see it in the skin even though it's been washed and soaped and all that for the next 4 weeks yet.
Mm.
So you can do it twice a day. Just put it again in the nose, in the cotton swab, and 3 times, and then get about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon into the mouth, gargle and swallow, and again a half a teaspoon. And remember, most people make a mistake of putting the oil and wanting to watch it. They look at it glistening on the surface of the skin. You're wasting the bloody oil. What you should do is really massage it thoroughly into the skin. Let it in,
It's so
and
funny.
feel how beautiful your skin becomes, nice and soft
Okay.
and protective.
A couple of things I think to emphasize here. Well, before I get to that, for people who were asking about her book, yeah, there's some copies available. Just drop us a PM. We can help make that happen for you. And then in terms of, I think it was
Sign.
okay. I don't know if we can promise that, so
Okay.
don't quote me on that. Um, when she was talking about getting the VCO up the nose, really important to remember is the rubbing. So I don't even use a cotton swab. She doesn't. She uses her fingers and she stuffs them up there and then she goes around. I can't quite do that. So I, I literally pour a little bit from a little spigot into my nostrils and then I go like that and I rub. What's crucial is the rubbing, is I think what I'm trying to emphasize here. It needs to be rubbed around because you want to break it down to activate those fatty acids, right? So don't just put it on there and then, I don't know, wait.
Some people will actually ask me,
Yeah.
"Aren't you scared that that oil will drip down into the no, into your back and then go into the lungs and produce aspiration pneumonia?" I laughingly say, "We're talking of not mineral oil. We're talking about coconut oil. You're putting a little bit here, and those microbes, I tell you, are just so happy to greet it and break it down already to its fatty acids right on site. And even if it goes to the back area still and dribbles down and over here, there are lots of microbes in our gut, folks, all the way from the front down to the insides of us. They act on those fatty
Okay.
acids very quickly."
I have to get to all the questions.
Okay.
So, Nina asked earlier, aside from being, say, a cold pressed virgin coconut oil, what else do we need to be on the lookout to make sure we're getting the best VCO?
Okay. What I tell people is that anybody can make VCO. You can listen
In
to
your
YouTube.
home,
In
if
your
you
home.
happen to be in a place
Yeah.
that grows coconuts.
Right. You have YouTube, buy the brown 10 to 12 months old coconut, about 3 or 4 or even 5, depending upon the size. So follow YouTube or at the
Not the green coconut? I always thought it was the green. It was
it
the
has to be
older.
the old one.
Mm.
So that the meat is already very
Oh,
small.
that's right, of
because
course,
everything
otherwise
has been
it would just be,
contributed
yeah.
already to the water. And it can be done at the village level. It can be done by anybody, really. But those people who want to go to the drugstore and find out what's the best VCO, this is what I advise them. Ask for samples from the 5 VCO bottles they have. Put it into a clear glass bottle, all 5, and look at them. Look for the one that looks really like water. There's no color. It really is limpid like water. Okay?
And no smell.
And then smell it. The one
Oh,
that
well, no.
smells the least, that's the one
Wait,
that you get.
yes and no, because then she actually hooked me onto the fact that some people are putting masking fragrances
Mhm.
to make it smell like an organic oil.
That's right.
So you want the faintest smell
Of coconut,
of coconut.
not
Com-
of perfume.
Yeah, completely absent means there's probably a masking fragrance in there. Anything that smells yummy, probably the heat has been used,
Yeah.
right? Or it might even have perfume or flavoring that's coconut.
Right.
So the mildest.
Yeah, the mildest
Actually, I
smell.
have a blog post on that, on the smell of coconut. So that's interesting.
Okay, but so then one patient of mine said, "So why are we buying your expensive coconut oil?" I said, "Because you're coming to see me, which means that you have sensitive skin. So for those of you who have sensitive skin, I really recommend that you find the best coconut oil you can get that has all of those qualities I told you
It also
about."
takes a lot longer when you're doing very manual pressing. Manual pressing, I mentioned this earlier, it takes like 4 coconuts to make one bottle. But the nice thing about cold manual pressing is you get more of the phytochemicals intact. Because a lot of these antioxidants and phytochemicals, they can be fairly diva-ish and they're sensitive. So they don't like being manhandled or subjected to heat and stuff. So the slower and more manually processed, the better. Um, okay, is it safe to use? Uh, I'm okay. All right, sorry. Walrus is asking, is it safe to use coconut oil on acne-prone skin? I ran out of moisturizer. I want to use it. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, because it's got anti-inflammatory properties. Any inflammatory condition can be a help. So whether you have rosacea acne, acne from masks, acne from toothpaste, acne from using too many
Yeah,
steroids,
remember, it's a broad
any
spectrum
acne you can use it. It's a
antimicrobial, so
very
it'll
good,
address a lot
and
of
it
the
will address two
microbes.
things. It's antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory as well.
There you go. Also, we mentioned this before, a lot of the reports that talk about VCO as being comedogenic are based on really old studies that were inconsistent at the time, done on rabbit ears.
Yeah.
And newer
Nah.
methodologies by Drelos, etc., have really proven to be far more accurate, right? And yeah, VCO is not comedogenic. The thing is, make sure your VCO does not have allergens in it. Like if you
Yeah.
buy a VCO, it's been stored in a vat with perfume or it has additives and stuff, because allergens can irritate the pore. It won't clog the pore the way a comedogen would, but it could irritate the pore, cause inflammation, infection, acne, right? So, Walrus, I hope that was helpful. Takao, is VCO safe for cold sores?
Hey,
This was actually from
yes.
Instagram, this one.
One of the best study that I remember all the way back in the 1998, 1999. You know, I had already been starting these studies on like antimicrobials, and I had a patient who had herpes virus, herpes simplex. And he came to see me because it was getting bad. It was spreading into the mouth already. So I gave him an antiviral drug. And he liked it so much because it disappeared very quickly. But he had what we call recurrent, which means
So he kept
six
taking it.
times a year at least recurrences. So he decided, okay, I'm going to stop this by taking it one a day every day, which he did for 2 years.
Ay.
Apparently, the virus also develops a resistance or fights back as well. So all of a sudden, he's in the emergency room. He's got viral lesions all over the body, in the mouth, and a condition we call erythema multiforme. So viral, viremia, and erythema multiforme. And at that time, there was only one antiviral drug, the one he had been using.
So
And we
now
know
it wasn't
he's
working,
resistant.
yeah.
So I said, okay, what do I do? And then I thought, well, you know, all those studies, antiviral, you have to believe your own research, right? So what I did was, and boy, I tell you, I watched this patient like a hawk. I had all the residents properly gowned and all that. And we just applied the coconut oil, the VCO, and the monolaurin for him to drink and apply as well. We bathed him with the coconut oil all over the body, and then the monolaurin and all of that. And I tell you, these are blistering diseases. This is not just a simple little herpes simplex that we're talking about. In 8 days, the patient was out of the hospital. You know, it was such a miraculous kind
And
of
his
a
maintenance
change.
now is.
Because what the VCO does is, in addition to being antiviral and anti-inflammatory, it repairs the cells that were blistered and eroded and
Right.
whatever.
And now maintenance for that patient
No
is,
more, doesn't have it anymore.
there you go. Okay.
I think the virus got scared.
The virus got scared. So very quickly going to some questions here. Leah was asking, is VCO with monolaurin safe to intake? Yeah, the one that you mentioned, Leah. Yes, very much so. Remember, monolaurin, it makes up a large
17
percentage
to 18% in
of
breast milk.
So very safe to intake. Jean just joined us. Actually, Tammy, I just saw your comment. She has a grandma mini.
Oh my God.
Isn't that cute? Okay, anyway, so
A real
Jean,
grandma Minnie.
Jean who just joined us is asking. So I'll do a very quick summary, for people who came or coming in late. Um, she has 3 studies ongoing now for mild to moderate COVID patients using virgin coconut oil, and also for severe COVID patients. And then we're working on one for prevention.
In communities.
In a nutshell, for prevention, what you do is twice a day, you apply it all over like you would a hand sanitizer, your hands, under your nails, etc., in between the webbings of your hands, on your ears, because usually that's exposed, and then up your nose with your finger or cotton swab or just dropped in there. But the crucial thing is to remember to rub it. This sounds lovely. You gotta rub it because you have to break down the fatty acids. The fatty acids are what are crucial in the antiviral thing. She also mentioned earlier, you can watch a replay and go to the beginning where she talks about these studies as antimicrobials date back to the 1800s, actually.
Lipids
So-
as antimicrobial.
Okay, so hands, ears,
give you those
in the
lines.
nose. Yes. Nose. And then inhale like that to try to get it further up the nose. And then gargle with with it. Swish it around your mouth. And then gargle with it. And then swallow. And you do that twice a day. And then for mild to moderate COVID, RT-PCR confirmed patients, you do the same thing but 3 times a day
And at a higher dose.
at a higher dose. Okay, so going back here to questions.
But
Some
that
of
is
these
for,
came from
for those
Instagram.
people who are in quarantine or isolated at home, who have mild to moderate. That's what we were talking about, right? Severe, of course, is in the hospital.
Yeah, well,
and
severe
the
have to be in the
critically
hospital.
ill and the pneumonic and whatever.
And for that, some of the studies are going to be on VCO also for the invasive equipment that's used, because that can help as well. So we got to cold sores. What what else should I apply if monolaurin gel doesn't work on my acne? Depends on the acne and depends on the cause.
Find the cause.
She
Most
always
important
says.
in any kind of acne is to find the cause. If you are a
Exactly.
teenager, but even if you're more of an adult, it's usually from about, by the time you're getting your period or the boy is changing into his little manhood, down up to. God, that didn't come
That
out
didn't
right, did
come
it?
out at all. Ralph.
Up until about for men
That's
it's
funny.
about up to the age of 24. For women it's a little bit
It's
earlier.
funny.
We mature earlier than the men. This is called acne vulgaris, which means the hormones that are doing all of the changing of our body's physiology is the one that's stimulating the oil glands and the pore to thicken, to produce what we call acne vulgaris. And for those, therefore, you have a special treatment for that. Now, that usually disappears by the time you go into the older age. But then adult acne is almost as common now,
Mhm.
as or even more common nowadays, so that beyond the age of 20 to 24, you now have acne even up to the 60s, 70s. I've seen an 80-year-old woman saying, why do I have pimples again? It didn't turn out to be pimples. Many of them turn out to be, especially in the COVID times, with the use of all of these disinfectants in the air, changing the microbiota of the epidermis.
Okay, so 2 things. Yes, so in answer to that, please go to a dermatologist who can help you better identify what it is.
That's right.
Maskne can be from a fungus, can be from mites. There are many things at play, right?
right.
So there are many things that can be done. What I wanted to share too is she had a conversation with a hospital about different concerns that they had, and there was an infectious disease specialist there, and she, they were saying, God, there are all these super bugs now.
We are using already the strongest, the disinfection, and people come in every week to disinfect it fully, plus every day we're using all of the sprays and chemicals. So I'm listening to all of this, and finally I said, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to say something that you won't like, and that is that it's precisely because you're using all of these strong chemicals, disinfectants, especially in the hospital, they're using very strong disinfectants and all of that. The patients are getting all these medications that make them photosensitive to all of the lights that are there. There are so many things that are important in the management of severe COVID, and this is precisely what we're going to be addressing. And also using the coconut oil to, like I said, anything inserted, we wipe, and anything that comes out that is still going to be reused, have them washed with a proper soap that is also got some kind of coconut oil derivative, and then before inserting, they place the coconut oil again in over
There you
it,
go.
over it.
Okay, so related question here from, I think it's Jana and Tammy. They're both related. What is the difference between VCO and VCO with monolaurin? And is it better to use one or the other when putting up the nose?
When you really have an infection, use something that has monolaurin in it. So VCO with monolaurin is normally what I would recommend to somebody who has a staphylococcal infection, a streptococcal,
So
a
something
lip that has
active.
become so swollen, like I'm treating somebody because the maskne that they were using had became secondarily infected and couldn't come to the clinic. So I said, okay, I'm going to treat you for both virus and bacteria. You're going to use something with monolaurin in it, which cleared it up
So
almost
what is the
overnight.
difference between just VCO and VCO with monolaurin?
The VCO has its own qualities that we've already been discussing.
Mm-hmm.
When you add, and remember that also divides already into the monolaurin, that would be roughly about 10 to 15% monolaurin from the 50% lauric acid in the coconut oil.
So
So
VCO
then,
has some
right,
monolaurin anyway.
already has monolaurin. If you add now the pure 98% monolaurin that we get to add to these things, you
Mm-hmm.
really have an antiseptic effect there.
So here's another thing to answer. No, there's also a question of form. Monolaurin is wax. It is a waxy thing. Therefore, trying to get pure monolaurin and just applying it would be a fairly unpleasant experience. Whereas VCO is an oil. It's a lipid. It's lovely, right? So VCO already has some monolaurin in it, which is part of why it is an antimicrobial. Adding more monolaurin in it jacks that up significantly. So it really is, as she said, it's a matter of degree, maybe. Like in the house with my kids, we would do it as prevention with a VCO primarily.
Yeah.
And then we would monolaurin if someone is more sick, like sniffles and stuff like that. Sam is asking, is it okay to use cheap VCO for oil pulling?
Oil point. Cheap PCO, which means the refined, bleached, deodorized. That's the one that's called cooking oil.
No, that's cheap coconut oil, not cheap
Cheap
VCO.
VCO.
Yeah,
When you go to the drugstore and you look for the cheapest VCO,
right.
you can still get, like I said earlier, you can get the barrier repair. But now, when it's really cheap, think about if it's really cheap. Is it really coconut oil? Because now that
Mm,
coconut oil is gaining ground, there are now what they call adulterated. In other words,
that's right.
they add cheaper oils into the coconut oil to make it much cheaper. That you have to consider if you really get it very cheap.
Yeah, as a
Yeah.
general rule, what I've heard her say, and that I often recommend with my friends, is you can use the cheapest RBD oil, refined bleach deodorized, as a cooking oil. Because believe it or not, even RBD coconut oil is better than a lot of vegetable oils. Then
And
there's o- virgin coconut oil, and I do this because there's no clear standard yet, right?
mhm,
People are working on a standardization. But virgin coconut oil can still be oil that is extracted using heat, um, an enzyme, and centrifuge. That's not bad. It just makes the extraction process so much faster. That's why it's cheap.
and bigger amounts are
Right,
expressed.
exactly. So that you can probably use on most things, especially certainly in poorer communities. Hand hand extracted and pounded is even fine,
Even fine, yeah.
right? If you have extremely sensitive skin or a an inflammatory skin condition, stuff like that, what she would recommend is something that is certified organic, that has no allergens anywhere near the thing, meaning not in the vat where it's stored and handled,
Or even
cold,
preserve. Some people still preserve the
exactly,
coconut oil.
unnecessarily, very, what was I going to say? Cold pressed,
Mm-hmm.
as close to harvest as possible pressing, because then you keep as many of the phytochemicals as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That for your gargling, for skin and hair, for infections and stuff like that. But truly, you get quite a bit from any coconut oil. It's just the higher the standard, the slower the process, the less stuff that's in it, the purer the benefits, right? So you would use that for more important things, like on your salad or oil pulling or in your coffee, and certainly for the COVID stuff that we were discussing today. Oh, sorry. I want to ask for two. Total, we started a bit late, so I think we have time. Can I use VCO on my dog who has a skin condition?
Absolutely.
We're laughing because we have a poor dog who has such an issue.
I
Oh,
have a
God.
poor dog as I think atopic and seborrheic dermatitis, the poor kid, I tell you. So my granddaughter is amazing. Madison, after dinner, will stand up, even when she's watching a movie, will stand up, put on gloves, and, you know, massage the coconut oil all over the body of our dog. And thank God, he looks much, much better with it.
She has concoctions from the pharmacy for our dog. That is pure VCO. Then some coconut vinegar, and then a vast
Olive oil. Because olive oil is a good barrier disruptor.
olive oil has some benefits. It's a funny benefit because it
It breaks the, it allows the actives
to
from
penetrate
to
more
penetrate
deeply.
more.
But it does so by,
By destroying the barrier a
destroying
little.
the barrier a little. So it's a funny, good thing, right?
Yes.
But then put coconut oil after and you repair it. But so she has that for the dog, including Vas alba as a barrier. It's a thing. So yes, you can.
You can.
And then since monolaurin is expensive, how much VCO do we have to take to have the therapeutic dose? I love this question
It's
because
one
I think there's
tablespoon
a-
3 times a day. 45 cc.
Okay. But one thing I would like to emphasize here
The
is
treat, no, is the question.
yeah, is that many times what she tells people is she says, I'm not even sure if you need to drink it. What's more important is the application, as she mentioned earlier, because 85% of COVID entrance is from the skin, right? And there are these glands at play in the mucosa of the nose, mucosa of the mouth, and in the sweat glands in the skin. What's actually more important is that application and the rubbing to break down the fatty acids, because that's where the antimicrobial power comes from, right? So it's not even the drinking so much. It's helpful, but
Especially if you have an established infection already.
yeah,
You have to drink it in order for it to go all over the body into the bloodstream and all. But like I said, 85% of the organism gets to you through your skin, nose, and mouth. So kill it right there because it stays for about 3 to 5 days. That's why it takes a while before they say take the RT-PCR test and all that. You don't do it immediately after exposure to somebody. That's the reason why, because it still lands on you, but still has to get to those cells, and replicate there before they can go inside. So the local use is very important.
y'all messing with me with your great questions coming in late. So, VCO for disinfecting surfaces, yes,
Yes.
absolutely. My one caution that I always tell people here is remember that these are fatty acids, so they might not play well with some surfaces,
Like,
right?
the
Like,
wood is okay.
a lot of oils
The
don't work.
leaves are okay.
A lot of oils don't work with latex condoms. Don't use VCO or
That's right.
other oils as a lubricant, folks. Don't do it unless, you're open to oops or I don't know. Anyway, but certain woods, you should do a spot check for certain woods, right? Just to see how the VCO reacts with it. But VCO is an excellent disinfectant for surfaces. How to use VCO with olive oil. So first, she wouldn't recommend olive oil for everybody.
No.
She would recommend it very specifically for certain conditions where she needs those things to go a bit deeper. Because remember, it does damage the barrier a bit, right?
Actually, it has anti-inflammatory properties as well. So you can use it a little bit.
Actually, one of her papers is specifically virgin coconut oil versus atopic dermatitis. Olive oil for atopic dermatitis.
Yes. As a
That's
matter
a
of fact,
great
this
paper.
severe COVID study we're going to be doing is going to be comparing VCO versus olive oil. And I said, I had to look for the best oil, botanical oil that is there that has properties of inflammation, and it does. So it's going to be wiped on the skin as well, wiped on other surfaces, and drunk.
I will let her go because, as you heard, she has 4 studies that she's working on. Thank you. Thank you. Mwah, and good luck.
Thank you.
And
Bye bye, everybody.
when we get clearance we have a video where my kids did the demo for how to apply the VCO, and if we get clearance from one of the studies to share that demo,
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that.
Sure. ANC, by the way, Saturday.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but okay. All right, Mom.
Bye bye. Love you. Love you.
Bye,
all.
everybody.
Bye.
Hey, bye, everybody. Bye, Mom. Okay, so very quickly, folks. This was really too funny. I'm all discombobulated. Thank you again. I won't go through all of the reminders I did in the very beginning. And yeah, we'll try to be good about posting new news about VCO and stuff. Any other questions you have, keep them coming on the comments because we do come back and check the comments. Okay? Be well. Like us on Facebook and Instagram and follow us on YouTube. We're putting up videos every week. So, yeah, take care, everyone. Have a beautiful, safe, fantastic week. End of week ahead of you. Bye bye.